What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the PickSwap Media YouTube channel. My name is Sean Barnard as usual, and I'm excited to announce that for this video, we have partnered with WHOP.com, WHOP.com. WHOP is an all-in-one marketplace for sports communities and other digital products. If you're looking to find communities on all things sports, sports capping, sports betting, and sports fandom, head to WHOP.com/sports. They're the all-in-one digital marketplace, the Amazon of the future for digital products. I'm incredibly proud and excited to be partnering, so make sure to go check that out. You can click the link in our description and our comments. Thank you to WAP for sponsoring this video, and thank you to you guys for tuning in.
Check it out.
Step back, James Harden, right on target. Bang, bang, George Niang to Paul Reed from Tyrese Maxey. Joel Embiid.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Pick Swap podcast. After a big weekend in Philly sports, maybe like the perfect weekend in Philly sports. What a great showing from our teams here. It is me and Sean Barnard back as usual. Sean, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, coming off back-to-back pretty amazing weekends in Philly sports. We got the Eagles heading to the Super Bowl. Sixers kind of running on their stretch. Had a little bit of a fall-off game, which we'll acknowledge. But overall, the vibes are high and things are great.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Coming off a really good stretch here, the Sixers, at one point were moving up to the #1 spot in the NBA power rankings as of yesterday afternoon. We'll see how the rest of this week goes with them. But obviously 7 in a row, dropped one to the Magic last night. So like we said, why don't we just get that one out of the way really quick, because we'll just briefly go over that and then get deep into the other ones that were way more fun and important.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's some super hard-hitting takes from last night. It's a throwout game, like you mentioned. They were due for a letdown game. 2 back-to-back games, which were very emotionally high, and you can see how much specifically for Joel Embiid and the rest of the team as well, those games meant. 2 kind of statement wins on the season. So yeah, they were kind of due for a fall off. They had their foot on the gas early on and then just kind of didn't play hard through the final 3 quarters. The Magic are a young and hungry team. When you let them hang around, they're going to capitalize on it. They've beat the Celtics 3 times this year. It's a bad loss in the way that it happened for sure, but overall, not super concerning to me.
Yeah, it was kind of whatever. It did feel like you blink for a second and it was like, oh wow, it's close. And then you blink again and the Magic are up. And they just couldn't really get anything going, especially later in that second half. And like you said, the Magic are playing decent basketball right now. They got a lot of guys that are trying to prove themselves. And Paolo is fantastic. I think the only takeaway I had from yesterday was that Paolo is a real deal. Obviously, we've been seeing that all season, but nice to see him in person live like that. So great showing from him. But aside from that, let's move off that game, because it really doesn't matter the grand scheme of things. Kind of backtrack here. Do you want to start with Brooklyn or Denver?
We'll touch on Brooklyn first. A little bit of the string of the Joel Embiid revenge tour here, and I think that's kind of my takeaway from both games is just how much Joel cares. And for me, that's kind of why I think he's kind of grown the affection from the city of Philadelphia in the way that he has. Personally, a reason why I particularly like him is he's kind of has more emotion than your average athlete, and he's not a guy that can kind of brush things off. You can tell when it emotionally means something, and when he's bought in and locked in. And both these games were examples of that. And the Brooklyn game specifically, I mean, it was clear from the opening tip that all Joel Embiid wanted to do was just dunk on Ben Simmons and just absolutely dominate Ben Simmons, even from that literal second possession down the court where he is dragging Ben with him to the post. And I don't think it was a particularly good Joel game. I think he was a little too overly revved up and too focused on kind of taking it out. But I also just love that for him, that he still has that passion, he still has that drive, and it's very cool that he hates Ben Simmons even more than the entire city of Philadelphia does.
Yeah, like you said, it was very clear. It was I'm going at you. And I think, like you said, it was kind of a little bit too much at times. Not that I was loving the fact that he was doing it. By no means was I upset by him going at Ben, but it almost seemed like that took him out of his own rhythm. So
Definitely.
He got himself caught up in that, but I love that. And Ben actually ended up playing a decent game by his standards at this point, and he did what he normally does. And he doesn't play in the fourth quarter anymore. And it's just nice now to not worry about it. We kind of got that all out of the way, and Embiid played all right, and they won. Big game for them, a big win. I mean, so I don't know, man. It was fun to watch. Glad they got the win. And Ben got booed. I think the reasonable amount. I don't think that there was anything like nothing egregious came out of that. I think that's a big win for the city of Philadelphia. Just as a whole, like nothing bad really, like press wise, came out of that game. It was just the boos, and that's to be expected, especially with the way that things played out. So wins all around, I think, for Philly here.
Yeah, it's weird. The Band-Aid's kind of gradually been ripped off in this one because Ben had his return without playing, and then he had his return without Embiid playing, and then it was like finally the matchup of these two against each other on the court. And for Nets fans specifically, I will say they have gone through the Ben Simmons cycle so much quicker than Philadelphia ever did. And I get obviously different situations. He kind of came to him as damaged goods, so it makes sense. But they went through he only has to do this, or he's going to be perfect in his role with shooters around him, and where he doesn't have to do offense at all. And now he is literally benched for fourth quarters and can't play in closing lineups. And his coach is publicly calling him out to the media, of kind of questioning if he's even hurt. So it is pretty amazing to see how quick it's turned. We're not even at the trade deadline yet, man. And it feels like things are kind of collapsing on Ben in another situation.
Yeah, it's really, he is a shell of what he used to be. And, going through all of this and talking to people, and I've gone back and been like, man, I really did believe in him. There was so much more to believe in a few years ago, and that has been so evident. He is not even broken. A factor offensively. They don't even consider him to be an option. It's 5-on-4 on that end. He catches the ball inside the paint, doesn't even look at the rim. He's looking to dish. And that he's always obviously been a pass first guy. He's always been a guy that was looking to do other things other than score. It is to the umpteenth degree where he is nowhere near what he used to be as an offensive player. And it's honestly like, it's kind of sad. Like I genuinely I don't even know what to think of it because it just seems so wrong. But again, like I said, I'm happy to have been moved on. James Harden was fantastic in that game as well, and played really well, especially in the second half into the fourth quarter. And a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people really didn't consider that to be a win-lose trade. But James Harden proved himself, has been proving himself a lot recently, especially late in games. Kind of take me through that fourth quarter and just kind of what it felt like. It did feel like a win for James Harden, getting back at the Nets specifically, but also just playing a really good fourth quarter in that game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be telling throughout the season that there's going to be a lot of games that we live and die with the James Harden three-pointer in those last couple possessions, and we absolutely lived against Brooklyn. And he got his shot. He forced one. He had one bad one that he kind of jacked up after he hit back-to-back ones. But, dude, if you hit back-to-back ones before that, yeah, you can. I give you the pass. So there is that kind of – we've talked about this for a while throughout the Embiid era, how there's that kind of that, slice of offense that's for the taking when we can't get a post launcher, can't ask Joel to create every single possession. We need somebody to go create their own, and that's what James Harden is doing, and he's capitalizing on those. It's so weird because he is kind of the playmaking is always there. He always has his handful of drives to the baskets and plays like that, but so much of his game, of whether it's like a good game or a bad game, are simply reliant on whether those threes fall or not, and they have been lately. He's shooting at a higher three-point percentage than he has in, I believe, 6 or 7 years at this point. And it feels like that. It doesn't feel like he's just kind of jacking him up. Like he has a nice bounce to him. It's a nice kind of balanced shot. He's using his legs. It's not as much of a heave as it felt like last year. And they're falling for him. So I'm happy to see it. It definitely felt good for him as well. And also shout out Seth Curry for dropping 31. Yeah. And he's still the man as much as it hurts against us. Nothing but love for Curry for sure.
Yeah, he went out, man. Curry had a great game, and it kind of it made you miss him a lot. He's a guy that I think if you're not watching too much of the Nets, you can almost forget about him, just because he's understated. His game is understated. He is that dude. He played a really good game, when honestly was the only reason that game was close. So for the Nets, I mean, so great game from him. But to kind of go back to Harden, he's been fantastic. I think. Just watching him play compared to last year, it is that renaissance that we were hoping for. It is that new wave of James Harden. I think the quality of shots that he's taking has been really good. Obviously up there in the league leaders of assists per game. He's been great. There is no debate for this, and it's a frugal conversation to even start having, because it's not something up for discussion. If you're looking at it one way, I think the Sixers fleeced the Nets in that trade. The biggest thing they gave up was Seth Curry. So you know, it is what it is, right? You move past that game. It was nice, like you said. This has just been, we've been waiting for this for so long. We've been, first he wasn't playing, then Joel was missing games. He came back in the preseason, and it was all this and that and whatever. And it's finally over. I think that really that was a nail in the coffin. We're finally done with that era of Sixers, and Nets rivalry, whatever it is. Although we didn't get a KD in that game, so there is still a missing piece.
Yeah, I agree that it was destined to happen, needed to happen, needed to finally occur. I don't think the rivalry is over by any means, and I think it's pretty much destined for a Sixers and Nets playoff series at some point in this. It just feels like there's too many storylines, too much going on, and it's gonna be too fun. These are two very fun to watch teams, very differently constructed teams, and both very good teams. So I do think it's destined to happen, and I'll be excited for it when it does.
Yeah, and like I said, no KD. He was tweeting from his wherever he was at the time, firing off a lot of tweets saying he missed talking shit with Joel and Trez and a lot of those guys. And that'll be fun. Like you said, it'll be a ton of fun. This is just good basketball teams, and like really different vibes from both teams, meaning just like the way that they play. I think they go about it a lot different ways, and their matchups will be really fun to see, especially at full strength. Hopefully, when that time comes. But if you don't have anything else with that game, I think we can kind of move, unless you do.
Yeah, last quick 2 shout outs just from that game, and then we'll move on. Is not to be the referee guy, but like the technical fouls handed out there were absolutely absurd. Like James Harden got one for literally like tossing it against the backstop and not even like chucking it in an angry way, literally just like throwing it off it. Just super quick with the whistles, slowed down the whole game. It was the longest first quarter that had occurred this entire NBA season, and it really did like take away from the game in a negative way. Referees are there to ref; they're not be the star of the show. And last thing, I just love Nick Claxton, man. He is one of my favorite players across the league to watch. And as much as we have like talked down on Ben, some of it is a credit to Claxton for stepping up and taking those minutes and being the guy that the Nets need in that role. And he's terrific. So he's an awesome player and super valuable to the team. So big Nick Claxton fan.
Yeah, he's great. It's he does a good job on Joel, especially with him giving up so much size. Just weight wise, he's missing a lot there, and he stays physical. He blocked a dunk, one of Joel Embiid's dunks, so he got the best of Joel in certain periods of time. But that'll be a good matchup to watch as well, especially I think once Joel can kind of settle in and not worry too much about the head to head and play just more team basketball and get to his spots and do what he normally does. But yeah, I think I can get on the Nick Claxton train as well. He was definitely really good in that game. But to move into the real head to head, what a lot of people, and I have a lot to say about this game, just storyline narrative wise, following just what we talk about the game itself. But the Sixers beat the Nuggets after being down a significant amount in that game. They come back and win on the back of a fantastic, maybe that's up there with an all-time Embiid performance. 47 points, 18 rebounds, dagger after dagger in the fourth quarter. Everything went through him, and he gets significantly better than Jokic, the best of Jokic in that game, where Jokic had 22 and 9 and 8. We'll talk about that side of it, but just walk me through that Embiid game. Just what an incredible performance from him there.
Oh, yeah. I had a chance to be there on press row, do the media coverage for this one in person. One of the most impressive individual performances I've seen in my life, certainly in person, maybe even just ever watching. And another game where it was very clear that Embiid took it very personally. And a little bit different from the Nets game is it started out kind of the same way. Like he was a little overzealous. He picked up the first foul on Jokic on the first offensive possession, got an and one there. And it felt like he was like desperate to like, all right, I got to get him in foul trouble. And he was attacking him. He got an offensive foul where he just kind of lowered his shoulder on him. And he just kind of was in that, like, I'm trying too hard mode. And then there was a moment where Embiid kind of like settled in around like the second quarter and things kind of turned. And especially in the second half is where he truly found his stride and took over. The Sixers made a terrific adjustment throwing PJ Tucker on Nikola Jokic. And first off, Jokic could not do anything against PJ Tucker in one-on-one settings, which is crazy. But the reason that was such an effective just decision is the Nuggets were killing the Sixers with back cuts and off-ball motion. The Nuggets offensive system is terrific that way. In the way that they have movement off balls, they have cutters. That's why Jokic's assist numbers and advanced statistics, whatever you want to throw out, are so inflated because the system is so generous to all those passes. And it's effective offense. It's great stuff. but by putting Tucker on Jokic, who is essentially the point guard of their offense, you can call him a center or whatever, but like that allowed Embiid to just basically patrol the paint and just took those options away. So it was a credit to Doc Rivers for that. He said he watched PJ Tucker do this when he played with the Heat, and that's kind of how the Heat did it, and he saw the success, and it absolutely worked. It changed the game, and it took some defensive strain off Embiid to just kind of patrol paint. He had a couple blocks in it. He protected the rim terrific, and he just dominated offensively. And down the stretch, calling out Jokic in isolations, that step back 3 dagger was absolutely awesome, and you could tell he wanted it, and he got it. And to me, it was pretty clear that there's a noticeable gap between these two big men, and we will get into this after that. But it was just an incredible performance, and I was happy to see Joel just kind of like have that on the biggest stage.
Yeah, national television, Saturday afternoon, world watching. It was really maybe the most fun I've had watching a Sixers basketball game in a really long time. Just everything is that second half coming together the way it did. It was just very, watching Embiid at his best is unmatched in terms of like just Sixers basketball. It's one of the things I enjoy the most about it. But when you talk about, to kind of go into the defensive side about it and think about PJ Tucker, what he was able to do, and give Doc credit here, give Doc credit overall. I think he deserves a lot over this last month or so. But to think about basically essentially what they did is they almost like box and won it at times, where Embiid was just kind of patrolling the paint, and you could see him like dipping out, putting his feet just outside the paint and then jumping back in, where with those back cuts and all the different motions that Denver has going on their offensive sets, he basically negated that in the paint. PJ Tucker made Jokic work for every single motion that he had, drew a couple fouls, had a couple, forced a couple turnovers. PJ was fantastic there. Even the putback tip in late in the game as well, which is just like
he got
PJ getting to the rim up there. He almost put it down. It was a tip in, but it was almost a dunk. He was up there, which is impressive for a guy that's nearly 40. But he was a game changer in that game, and I think it pointed out to a lot of Sixers fans that have been maybe worried about him or concerned about his production level. Like that's the type of PJ you're going to get in the playoffs. Obviously, it was amped. That was just like a big game in general, and a lot going on. But I think that's the type of defensive versatility from PJ that you're going to get, and something that becomes increasingly more valuable going into the playoffs. But offensively, when it was time to go for Joel, one-on-one matchup, there was just no way in hell that Jokic could stick with him. It didn't matter if it was on the perimeter. It didn't matter if it was in the post. It didn't matter if it was in the mid post. It didn't matter if it was on the nail. It could have been wherever, whenever. Joel Embiid got what he wanted at all times. And there was really a point in time in the fourth quarter where the offense was, which it tends to be most of the time, is dip it into Joel around the free throw line and go to work. And he had no chance. And really nobody else on the Nuggets roster had a chance either. So it's not that they could even switch him off, because there was no one holding Joel back in that game. So, man, which what an incredible performance. And it's going to go down as one of the best that he's had in a very long time. And the narratives following this game, and I don't know if you wanted to point anything out specifically in this game, but there's a lot I want to say following the game, because I think that there's a lot of things going on that I just genuinely don't like.
Yeah, let it rip. I want to hear. Empty the brains right now.
So, man, you see things on like ESPN, the YouTube titles are, Embiid and Jokic combined for 71 points when 47 of the 71 were from Joel Embiid. You think about the way that it's talked about on, the true shooting percentage and the efficiency and the passing and what, I saw somebody say Embiid is more talented, but Jokic is more impactful and is more valuable. That is bullshit, man. If you watch the basketball game, if you stop worrying about division symbols and decimals, if you stop worrying about that for 5 minutes, you look at that game, you watch the way that played out. There is no way in hell that you can look at that game, watch it start to finish, and tell me that Nikola Jokic is more important to the game of basketball than Joel Embiid was. When it came down to it, when it's time to put your money where your mouth is, Joel Embiid went out and he put up 47 and 18 against head-to-head, one-on-one, right at Nikola Jokic, the back-to-back MVP, and he took it from him. That Saturday afternoon's game, I think, is something that will, when you go down the line, when we get down to the end of this season, and you're talking about where the MVP should fall, I swear to God, Sean, if this guy wins 3 MVPs in a row, and we're talking about guys, legends, top 5 of all time, have never done that. If that comes down to it, and he's even in the conversation, he should not be. Giannis wasn't in the conversation last year. Why? Because people are sick of voting for him. Why do we do this every single year? No. Embiid dominated that game. He dominated Jokic step by step, beat his ass. Period. Yep. Point blank. No more said about it. That Joel Embiid is a better basketball player. You cannot tell me differently from here on out. That nothing more you can say.
I'm glad you went this direction. I was a little concerned you were about to be. They're both great players and take that slant on it.
Hell no.
Happy to hear that is not the case because yeah, it is insane. I quote tweeted the ESPN stuff of they combined for whatever points, and I quote tweeted with the picture of the Kobe Bryant and Kwame Brown combined for 84 points, and it's kind of the same vibes because there's just a noticeable difference in impact. Nikola Jokic does not have shit on Joel Embiid. Like every aspect of their game, besides the passing, is the one thing. It also drives me crazy the amount of people that still fluff up like the Jokic is underrated and stuff. It's like this man has back-to-back MVPs, and the pendulum has absolutely swung to the point where he is overrated, and he is not as good as the perception is of him because he can't defend anyone. And him, like, to me, that will always be the difference between these two. When you're constructing a team, Nikola Jokic is a flawed basketball player because he's a center that can't play defense. And I get like he's a smart player. He's a high IQ. He had a couple nice like swipes on Embiid going up for jumper. He's smart, but he's too slow. He's not strong enough. He's a good rebounder for sure, but he just can't move with guys. He just can't. And let me throw out like the Embiid and Jokic matchup stats that I have pulled up here. So during the Sixers and Nuggets game, Jokic guarded Embiid for 9 minutes and 36 seconds of game minutes and 43.2 partial possessions. During this time, Joel Embiid scored 30 points on 13 of 22 shooting, 2 for 4 from 3, 2 for 3 at the free throw line. So he was not foul baiting by any means, and he had 3 turnovers. In the fourth quarter, Embiid had 12 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist, 5 for 7 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and 2 blocks. Jokic had 2 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, was 1 of 2 from the field, and had 3 turnovers. Both played the final 7:58 of game minutes, and the Sixers outscored the Nuggets 23-13 during the stretch. And to the Nuggets' credit, they have done a great job of surrounding him with guys like Aaron Gordon, like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who are plus defenders who kind of cover up for his weaknesses, and they have a perfect system in place to inflate his numbers, to make him look like a very good player, because he's still for sure a very good player. Yeah. Like I'm not saying he's nothing by any means, but shouldn't be in the same conversation as Joel as far as what they do for their teams, how impactful they are to winning, and just what overall great players they are. Besides passing, there's literally nothing on a basketball court that Jokic can do better than Embiid.
That's it. That's all you need. That's all you need to know. And at this point, like, dude, I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear the analytics. And I'm not even that guy. I'm not even like, I will hear you out on that kind of stuff. I'm happy to put that into the conversation, and I respect that point of view. But there's just nothing that you can say after that game. There's just nothing you can. And granted, it is one matchup. It's a time where these guys don't get to play that often against each other, but that even makes it more special. But he only has so many chances to prove himself. Like Nikola Jokic has the edge. He has 2 trophies. Embiid doesn't have any. He doesn't even have an all-NBA team, first team All-NBA because of Nikola Jokic. And we have to stop with this bullshit. We have to stop. We have to stop putting guys in the All-Star game starters. We have to stop, keeping him off the first team All-NBA teams, because he is a generational talent that is going to get disrespected for decades to come because he doesn't have the accolades to back it up. When you watch him play, he's a different beast. He's something that guys have never, ever, ever seen ever in their lives. They don't know what to do with him. There's nothing you can do with him. He's a lethal mid-range shooter. He's 7'2" and 280 pounds. He can beat you up in the post. He can pull you out to the 3-point line. He can dribble the ball up the court and get to the rim on his own. He does everything. He can pick and roll. What are you going to do? He's one of the best interior defenders in the league right now. He can guard guys on the perimeter as well. Like, what is there to say anymore? I don't understand why we keep doing this. Why we keep pretending like he's not who he is. He proves it night in and night out. If Joel Embiid came into a game against Nikola Jokic and put up 2 freaking points in the fourth quarter, being guarded by a guy who's 40 fucking years old and is 6'5", we would never hear the end of it. But Nikola Jokic can do that, and people are still going to get on the apps and say, oh, but did you see his whatever and his VORP and his this and his that and his shooting percentage and what he does to the game? I'm like, and it makes me want to disrespect Nikola Jokic when I shouldn't have to. He's a fantastic player. He's different than anything we've ever seen. He does a lot of different things on the court, and he deserves the respect that he's been given. But in order for him to get that credit, it has continually discredited Joel Embiid. And I just can't take it anymore because it's just like before it's like, okay, I guess it's preference, it's this or that. It is what it is. It's not anymore. It's not anymore. We saw
Yeah.
it live. We saw
Yeah.
it live. That's it.
Yeah, no, Joel Embiid is going to go down as one of the most underappreciated and disrespected superstars of all time.
Right next to Harden.
Yeah, very fair. They're both kind of in a similar boat there because it is forgotten the dominance that Harden had for a stretch. Talking about, we mentioned this on here, but guys literally defending him like sideways to take away a 3-pointer. It's just nuts stuff that actually happened in the NBA. Forcing him to drive to the basket is a more effective way of guarding him. Yeah, in playoff series. And for Joel, like, it is absurd. And you're right. It's not the preference thing. It's like, we can debate this, like, get rid of positions, whatever, because neither one of them are traditional centers, because there isn't like a traditional center in the modern NBA, but there is one that's clearly better, and it's Joel Embiid. Like, he has reached a point in his career where he has surpassed Jokic, I think, by a notable portion, and it sucks to not kind of see the reputation, the acknowledgement around the NBA. And also, think about if this was a one-on-one game between Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. I don't think it's remotely close. Like, Embiid would take him to school. Embiid is better on both sides of the court as far as he can create his own shot significantly better. He can defend Jokic significantly better. And it just, like, it wouldn't be remotely close. And anybody talking about the, like, they put Tucker on it to shade Embiid or get Embiid off Jokic, it's just a drastic mischaracterization of what that was. And it's pretty upsetting that your MVP can't score on 37-year-old PJ Tucker because he could not get shit going.
That's what I mean, dude. It is what it is. I think that we got to see it. We got to watch it happen. I feel vindicated, and I think that's good enough for me for now. I mean, we'll see when it's all said and done this season who ends up where. Honest to God, I don't really care who wins the MVP as long as it's not him. And again, it's not because I care about him. Like, I want him to be disrespected. I don't. But he got what he got his credit. He got it twice, 2 times.
Yeah.
And in years where I feel like both of them were 50-50, if you want to even give it that. So I just need it to be somebody else. Give it to Jason Tatum. I'd rather go to a Celtic. And that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot.
Anyone but Jokic, I'm kind of team MVP at this point.
Exactly.
And, like, I'm still bitter about last year because, like, it's nuts to me after the whole Ben Simmons thing, after holding down the fort, after playing through the amount of injuries that he did, to not receive the recognition for that and to see it slip away on the final couple weeks in the season as the Sixers continue to win and as the Sixers continue to play good basketball. And them getting James Harden argument is absolute nonsense because, like, first off, Embiid is the only reason that James Harden forced his way to Philadelphia. The only reason that happens is because of the big man keeping the Sixers team afloat, keeping it a desirable location and destination for him to come and compete for a championship. And his level of play, Joel Embiid's level of play, statistically increased after Harden. He produced more points. He rebounded the ball better. He shot the ball better. He was more efficient, if that's what gets the job done for these analytical guys. And so it's just crazy to me that, like, it is such a shame, and I feel for him. And he's done a great job of kind of deflecting it. He had a cool answer post-game where he talked about, like, I think it's well documented that I'm not well liked at this point, and I don't really care. Like, maybe it's because I'm an asshole. Maybe it's because I troll. I'm just going to keep being me. And I like that. I love that outlook. But we still have an obligation to feel bummed out for him and frustrated for him because he does. He deserves it.
Yeah, he absolutely does. And I don't know, man. It was just, I think that more than anything, that Embiid performance, you know, against anybody else is fantastic, but it's run of the mill. Like, low key, it's something that he does on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So it's like, it was just very nice to see him go out. And it was clearly personal. It was clearly something that he wanted to do. And you saw James Harden's excitement for him, the piggyback ride, the whole thing. Like, love that. I feel like things are going in that direction with this team, the chemistry wise. That kind of segues us nicely into the next portion of this with the trade deadline kind of barreling down, man. It came down pretty quick. Not much has happened here, but as the days go by, you hear more and more about who may become available. We saw maybe the worst Montrezl Harrell performance of the year last night, and just I feel like the writing's kind of been on the wall with this. It seems like we're back at square one where we've been basically every January for the last 5 years have been. They need to add a backup center. At least a rim protector. I know you sent out a list of guys earlier who you think might be available or maybe some replacements here. What are you thinking right now?
Yeah, so to touch on, like, Montrez, first off, it's you're right. We're in the same spot. We're repeating history. We're in the same cycle of surviving the Joel Embiid minutes, and it's just not looking possible right now. I don't think there's a single player in the NBA that I feel confident in Montrezl Harrell guarding at this point. And not that he's ever been a defensive stopper by any definition, but it feels like he's even lost more foot speed. He's still just 6'7". Like he's not even a big man to this sense. Like that's in today's NBA, 6'7" is like wing size, and he's out there trying to be a big man. And he's lost the explosiveness in his legs. He's not a guy he's not a lob threat anymore, which is crazy based on like the only time he really dunks it is when it's like a wide open dunk to the rim and he can kind of do the 2-footed jump off. Like he's lost that kind of lob catching ability, which is one of the key reasons I believe behind the mindset in bringing him here is to bring that to the offense. And it's definitely something he did in Houston and something he did with the Clippers throughout his career. And that's a big thing that's lost in his game. And there just needs to be some sort of impact defensively to survive those minutes. So for me, I've talked pretty much all season that believing like wing is a bigger need. I'm kind of shifting gears on that. And I think like we're on track to be repeating history for Doc Rivers was literally fired from the Clippers for playing Montrezl Harrell too much on Nikola Jokic, and Jokic just cooking him. And as we've kind of talked about through this whole episode, like that we just can't kind of have a guy giving up bleeding points like that defensively that Montrez is definitely doing and is on pace to do, and will be further maximized in the playoffs where he's definitely going to get singled out and attacked. And the Paul Reed, I don't know what to say about Paul Reed more at this point, but it's very clear Doc's mind is made up that Montrez is the guy, and I think it's even clearer that it's on paper or on the court that he is not the guy. So I think it's on Daryl at this point to bring somebody else in as a different option. And yeah, like you said, I got a couple names we can rattle off and go through if that's how you want to do it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to kind of go into that with Montrez a little bit, I feel like, I mean, there's a times where that offensive spark plug is there. It is as advertised. But really it's just like his offense the way he was before. I mean, dude, he's averaging like 5 points per game. I was literally looking last night. It's pretty brutal. Like he doesn't create for himself at all anymore. Like that was kind of the whole thing with him before, is that you could stick him down at like the low post or baseline post, and he could do the rip throughs. He could get himself into the paint and create for himself there, but he shoots a terrible percentage at the rim. He just doesn't look comfortable much down there, and like he does do the he gets the dump off from whoever and goes up with two hands and yells, and like I love that. I do when it happens, but it's like it's just so few and far in between. And then transition, he's terrible, just like god awful as a transition defender. Like you said, it kind of feels like he's constantly in a mismatch. If he's size-wise matching up well, speed-wise he's not keeping up, and then vice versa. So, but I feel like there are some realistic options out there for the Sixers, and they could go get. So why don't you go ahead and do that, and we'll just kind of go through each one and talk about it.
Yeah, and it sucks because I've been a Montrez guy. I think he's a very cool person and a guy that I've liked as a player throughout his career. But yeah, it's just not there. And the offense that he does provide, which you mentioned is effective at times, is basically as a screen and roller, which is something that I think every single player on this list can do. And when looking around the NBA, I think there's more like gettable options than there typically is, or that I kind of expected there to be. So I'll break this down. I kind of have it in 3 categories. My dream targets, realistic targets, and a couple fallbacks. The fallbacks are 2 free agent guys I just want to bring up at the end, so we'll cover them last. But we'll go one by one and start out with my dream target number 1. Played last night and set to face him again tomorrow. That is Mo Bamba of the Orlando Magic with a $10.3 million cap hit, so a little more than they probably would be looking to spend. He's a Drew Hanlon guy. He's got an Embiid relationship, and I just think massive wingspan, massive size. He can shoot the 3 a little bit. That would be my number 1 target if I could pick one option for the Sixers to trade for. What do you think of Mo Bamba?
Yeah, big fan. I was actually talking about this last night while watching the game. I think he fits so nicely. He's a guy that actually shoots like 39.5% on 2.5 3-point shots per game. He's going to block shots. He's going to rim run. He's going to catch passes, and he's going to catch lobs. Like all this time we've talked about, and he's athletic enough to stick, you're not like falling in love with the fact that he's guarding a perimeter player. You're not like, oh, this is ideal. But you're feeling a lot better than if it's Montrezl Harrell, and he's a guy that can a little bit more versatile in that sense. And again, like it's going to be a couple minutes here and there. Mo Bamba in that role, I think would be fantastic, and a guy that can space the floor better than any of the other bigs that we currently have, aside from, Joel will shoot the three a lot as well. But Mo Bamba, the $10.5 million is tough to match. You're giving up a lot. We didn't even get to talk about Thibault today. Maybe we could sneak that in towards the end, but you'd have to give up Thibault in that, I suppose, unless you could make it with housework. But whatever it is, Mo Bamba would be really nice here.
Yeah, that'd be my number one. And I do think Thibault would need to be required in there, but that's something I think I'd be willing to do based on how things are playing out. And Thibault, also not a guy in the regular rotation. And to me, you got to kind of weigh the options of value versus what he actually brings on court. And why I think Thibault brings more on court than is really seen. The fact that he's not in the regular rotation makes him kind of expendable. So whatever. We'll move on to a former Sixer here. Number 2 is Richaun Holmes from the Sacramento Kings. $10.4 million cap hit. So another one that's kind of rough to reach. That's why they're in the dream category. But what do you think of Richaun?
Yeah, love Richaun. Kind of similar deal. A little bit less of like a rim protector, but a more versatile defensive big. He, again, rim runner, catch a lot of lobs, good screen and roll. Like that's been his entire life in the NBA. So he's definitely well versed in that sense. And an electric finisher, a guy that will put you on a poster. Don't have many of those guys on this team, so always happy to add another. If Richaun was here, I would be super happy. I think a lot of the fans, I think a lot of the process people would rejoice just because everyone's been fiending for a process player to come home, and maybe Richaun's the one, but he's definitely up there in my list. If he was able to get back here, that'd be a great addition for them.
Yeah, Bowling Green grad, which I think is pretty cool. I've been a Richaun fan. I think he got squeezed out by the whole logjam of the Jahlil Okafors, the Joel Embiid, the Nerlens Noel, and it kind of is aging to be probably the second best out of that group, which is pretty nuts considering he was a second-round pick. The other guys were all top 10 guys. So, but I would love a Richaun reunion. Once again, the number is a little tough. The last guy I'll throw out where the money's a little bit of an issue and everybody else is cheaper is Kelly Olynyk, who's got a $12.8 million cap hit. Ooh. That's tough to reach. Not a Kelly guy?
I hate Kelly Olynyk, man. Come on. Just basketball player wise, he's probably a very good fit. Not the athletic finisher that you're looking for, but savvy, good shooter, can space the floor. Does a lot there. Defensively, I think he can hang. He'll be fine. He does, like, he's been known to kind of play the 4 at times. You saw him do that over the last couple of years. So he can hang a little bit on the perimeter, a little bit better probably than the other guys mentioned. So that's a plus. I just do not like him. So if I can get over that, if he comes in and if he came over here and played really well, I'd probably get over it pretty quickly. But as a player, sure. I don't think Kelly Olynyk's on the list of guys that I would be giving up a lot to go get, but he would be player wise, fit wise, probably pretty good. Person wise, not a huge fan.
Wow. All right. Well, I think you could play with or without Embiid, which is a plus. I think that would be a cool lineup. They've never given like a true power forward that can shoot. PJ Tucker is like the closest thing, and there's been some shooting adventures with that this year. So I think that would be a nice option to provide that. And you could kind of play that 5-out offense with him with still some like real kind of center size and in kind of the way they try to do with Tucker at the 5, but he's got several inches on Tucker. So to me, that would be appealing. I think he's pretty expendable from the Jazz, who have no clue what they want to do as an organization right now. But the Lauri Markkanen's by far kind of the building blocking guy at Olynyk's position. So I definitely think he could be gettable if they can reach some sort of agreement on price and reach that kind of salary mark. But another one that's kind of hard to reach. And all these other options are more attainable from a cap perspective and money perspective. Next up, I'm going to go with is Jackson Hayes of the New Orleans Pelicans with a $5.5 million cap hit. He's a guy that kind of gets lost in the shuffle a lot, I feel like. And Pelicans are pretty deep. I'm curious what they kind of would be looking for. I think they should be buyers at the deadline and should be looking to upgrade. Hayes is another guy who's a rim runner. He's a shot blocker. He brings energy. He's only 22. I would love Jackson Hayes.
Yeah, I think he's a super solid player. Like you said, that there's the athleticism, a guy that can hang. Like I said, you're really kind of looking to check some boxes here. And some of them, some guys will hit all of them. Some will hit some. I think Jackson Hayes hits most. Guy that can hang on the perimeter, rim running, loud threat, good pick and roll, good defender, just like a notoriously good defender. That's kind of what he does. So yeah, he fits the bill. 5.5 isn't too bad. It's something you can make work. I think, again, when you're looking at who you're able to move on from in these situations, I think he probably, doesn't command as much as the other guys mentioned. So if that kind of mid-tier works like him in that sense, Yeah, I guess I don't really have too much else on Jackson Hayes, but I think he does fit the bill of like a rim running, rim protecting, pick and roll big.
Yeah, and not a guy playing a lot of minutes for the Pelicans, so I think somebody that they could be persuaded to give up on if they can find something of interest, something maybe there's some Jaden Springer interest or something built around
Yeah.
some future younger guys. Maybe we'll get into the Thibault discussion at the end, but I feel like that's something that could be possible. I think he's on the lower tier of the dream target kind of list. And the last guy that I want to bring up out of my dream targets is Naz Reid, and he's a guy who's been in
Yeah.
the rumors a little bit. This is kind of a popular name to be talked about. Only a $1.9 million cap hit. He's in the last year of his contract, so going to be a free agent at the end of this year. Is Naz Reid your guy, James?
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. He is so good. Doesn't get a lot of minutes, obviously, with the situation that he's in. And I know that there's some frustration building there. But man, he is fantastic. I think when you talk about all the boxes being checked, I think Naz Reid absolutely does that. I think that there's a lot of interest around the league as well. So I'm sure he'll draw a good amount of interest just league wide. But he is the backup big that would make the most sense for the Sixers. Like when you're talking about what they've missed in their backup centers, what their those guys have lacked over the last handful of years is everything that Naz Reid is. Great defender, rim runner, can shoot the basketball, super smart, and just tenacious. So I think Naz Reid, when you're thinking about who's on the top of the list, I think he might be the one at the top of the list there.
Yeah, I would say I'm a little bit lower on Naz Reid than the general consensus, but I still would be thrilled if he ends up in a Sixers uniform. I agree.
Yeah.
I think he'd be a great addition as a backup center. He can do a little bit of everything, fill that kind of. He brings like that kind of grunt work, kind of like energy, but like
Yeah.
at a bigger size, and he competes. He'd be awesome. He can do the pick and roll. He's a guy that kind of isn't afraid to scream. He has that same.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of somehow on my checklist for a backup big man. It's a guy that's like ready to bring the energy, get in guys' face, and Naz Reid does answer that as well. Yeah, I'd be open to it. I think they might get outbid just from there does seem to be some league wide interest there. But yeah, I definitely would be satisfied with that as well. We'll move on to my more realistic targets, and these are 5 guys here that I do think are pretty, again, pretty gettable. And I was kind of surprised the amount of options that seem to be available. So to start out with, there's a familiar face we touched on last week in Andre Drummond. Bulls seem ready to kind of blow things up a little bit. Only a $3.2 million cap hit. I'm not the biggest Drummond fan in the world, but I mean, I think he's probably better than Montrez. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think he's an upgrade in that sense. But again, we talked about this a lot, so we'll keep it pretty short with Drummond. I think good dude. I know he loves playing for Doc. I know he loved playing with this team, and I know for whatever reason the city really latched on to him. But I'm more than okay with him going somewhere else. Just we know what's going to happen come playoff time. And while he is an upgrade over Montrez, and the money's right, like 3 point whatever million, you can handle that pretty easily. And I don't think it would take much to get him. I just don't know that he's the answer because I think a lot of the problems that we discussed before would, hinder that experience come playoff time.
Yeah, the biggest pro to me is he's one of the few I generally believe Doc would play over Montrez because there is like a loyalty there. But he also seems to really like Drummond, so I could see him going with that. But yeah, I nothing but appreciation for Andre Drummond. He was a great vibes guy when he's here. He did his thing on court, but I don't believe in him for successful on court minutes. He didn't play well with the Nets in their brief playoff stint last year. I think we're kind of going to run into the same issue. I have no problem remembering him fondly, and I'm cool with leaving him at that. So we'll move on to the next guy is Isaiah Hartenstein off the Knicks with a $7.8 million cap hit, a pretty like complete and like just normal center again. I believe only 24 years old. What do you think of Isaiah Hartenstein?
Yeah, I'm a fan of Isaiah. I think he does a lot of things really well, and he's just super solid, right? Like I think he's not going to do anything crazy, but do you have any of his like shooting stats on hand here?
I'll pull them up right now. He can shoot a little bit.
I was gonna say I feel like he can do a little bit. Like I said though, he's gonna do a little bit of everything. He's a really strong rebounder and a good defender, and a guy that just is really smart and like good in the pick and roll, like just a smart roller in that sense. He's going to make the right play a lot. When you watch him play, he makes a lot of the extra passes, and he's a pest on the offensive boards as well. So I'm a fan of him. If he ended up here, I'd be super happy. I think that he's a guy that would not get played off the court when you think about the playoffs and everything. He would be a really good upgrade. And honestly, like it would just be it would be relieving watching like a normal basketball player play normal basketball minutes and do normal basketball things at that in that role. And I think that he fits that bill pretty perfectly.
Yeah, he's a career 32.5% 3-point shooter on pretty low attempts.
Great,
Hasn't
but
shot
not bad.
Yeah, doable. He hasn't shot more than 0.6 3-point attempts per game, but he's also had pretty low minutes. He definitely does have that a little bit of a mid-range game. I've seen him take that for sure.
Floater.
Yeah, that kind of like floater, kind of push shot, kind of in between kind of thing, which is something more than they kind of have right now. So I like Isaiah Hartenstein. I'll be open to that. Move on to another guy is Daniel Gafford from the Wizards. Only a $1.9 million cap hit, which is a pretty great number that we'll be working with. I like Gafford. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, we talked about Gafford a while ago, maybe following the playoff series against the Wizards. I like Gafford a lot. I think athletically he would be like in the pick and roll. When you talk about he's the type of guy, big body, good defender, good rebounder, but offensively when he's not going to do much, he's not going to give you any like post work or anything. But pick and roll wise, I think he'd be a fantastic partner with James Harden. I think he would flourish in that sense because James is such a good facilitator. He does a great job in just kind of finding those pockets. And he played really well alongside Russell Westbrook for the same, the same reasons. He did a really good job in that pick and roll area. So I would be really happy with Gafford, honestly. I think he might slide up the board for me now. Like, I know I saw that tweet earlier, but I didn't even pick Gafford out. I didn't stick out too much when I read the name, but now thinking about it, I think Gafford would be a really solid piece, especially at a low price.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been around for a little bit, still fairly young, a very gettable number, and I think the Wizards are going to be open to moving pretty much everything. I think they're going to be one of the more active teams. Kyle Kuzma seems kind of one of the poster boys for this trade deadline on a lot of guys going after him. So I could see Gafford being a name that is possible, and I think he would be an upgrade over what they have right now for sure. I'll throw three more out here. I'll throw two of them at you now. We got Zach Collins and Mason Plumlee.
Yeah, I don't really need anything from Zach Collins. I'm kind of good on that. I just think he's kind of like it's whatever. I mean, again, I think a lot of these guys would be at least equal, if not better than Harrell, especially in what you're going to be asking them to do is, late in the season. Collins just not a huge fan of. Plumlee cracks me up. Another guy though, like obviously, I was gonna say super normal player until he started shooting with the left hand, but that's commendable and respectable. So I'm all cool with that. I think he'd be I think he'd be good, solid, just a solid dude, big ass, broad shoulders, good rebounder, good defender, and a guy that I think hustles really hard and plays a strong brand of basketball. So I'd be with Plumlee. I don't mind Plumlee at all.
Yeah, I think I feel the opposite out of these two. I would take Collins over Plumlee. Collins a pretty good shooter. Career 33.4% on 1.6 attempts. He's shooting 37.1% from three this year. So I do like that kind of pick and pop potential. He's not a super plus defender. I'm curious to see what the Spurs do because there's a ton of rumors of them trading Poeltl or Jakob Poeltl, however you say his name down there too. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if he's in the long-term plans or whatever. My last name from my realistic targets is another process guy. Bring him home, Nerlens Noel, $9.2 million a year, so a little steep there, but he's not even really playing for the Pistons. Nerlens is essentially what the Sixers need is a rim-running guy. He is a lob threat. He's a plus shot blocker. Would you be satisfied with a Nerlens Noel return?
I think if he got bought out, I'd love to bring him here. I just don't know if he's worth putting two contracts together to go get, if that makes sense. You pointed out, like, rim runner, rim protector would be good in the screen and roll. I think any big that can go catch a lob would do fine with James Harden. But yeah, I think it's kind of tough just with the money that he's making, which how is he getting paid that much still?
Yeah, I don't know. I believe he's on the tail end. This is either the last year or he might have one more year after this. So he kind of signed this with higher hopes for what he would turn into for sure. But yeah, I like Nerlens. I think he's normal enough, can do the things that they need enough, and would be a welcome back. And he also seemed to have always gotten along with Embiid, which I think is a positive and a guy that at this point in his career has kind of accepted what he is and is no longer in his first go around at Philly. There was a little bit of that, like, who's going to be the star of this team? Who is Nerlens, like a building block guy versus all the other log jams down there? And he now seems to be at the point where he understands his role. He understands his NBA fit. And I think he could flourish with a renewed opportunity here. So That is my last realistic target. My two fallbacks that I just want to throw at you real quick are two guys that are currently free agents. By the way, Greg Monroe, I also found while researching current free agents right now, he is only 32 years old. How crazy is that? It felt like he was ancient, like in that Raptors series, and he had to be like 28 then.
I was gonna say 28. That's insane.
Yeah, nuts. But yeah, he's still 32. He's playing somewhere in the G League. So Greg Monroe, not on my list of targets. But my two last resort guys, I have DeMarcus Cousins and Hassan Whiteside. Both guys that I knew they were free agents, so I'm not like shocked by it. But I think they're deserving of an NBA chance, and I think both of them I would feel more confident going in a playoff series than I do with Montrezl Harrell. So would you be satisfied with either of those if they can't find anything on the trade market?
I would like Boogie. Attitude wise, like just Boogie, like in general, I think as just like a person to have around. Championship experience, maybe not too much playing, but was definitely there with the locker room and everything with the Warriors. And I don't know. I've never been a huge fan of Hassan Whiteside. I think you run into a lot of the similar problems as like a Dwight Howard and DeAndre Jordan. I'm a better rim protector at the time, but like he's going to get attacked in a pick and roll, and there's no chance he's sticking with a guard anywhere near the perimeter. Probably the same thing with Boogie, if we're being completely honest, but I think he has a better chance, and Boogie's a better shooter. And just like we'll get downhill. And when you talk about a guy that's not afraid to yet, like I feel like Hassan Whiteside just like whatever. I don't really care. But DeMarcus Cousins is going to let you know when something happens. So I think if I was going to pick one or the other, I would definitely go Boogie.
Okay. I'm a little more positive on both these guys than you. Boogie's still 32 years old. Whiteside's 33.
Wow.
So they're not like ancient.
Wow.
Boogie. Yeah. Crazy, right? Looking at Boogie's stats over the last 2 years, averaged 8.8 points, 6.0 rebounds, 1.7 assists in 89 games. Hassan Whiteside just last season with the Jazz averaged 8.2 points, 7.6 rebounds, 1.6 blocks, and 17.9 minutes per game. Both like decent numbers in a minimized role, I think could be fine. Also, two guys that have their attitude concerns and have had their beefs with Joel, which I think is kind of funny and kind of also seems to be on the checklist for backup big man. But if all goes like awry and there's no options, I think either one of those guys will be brought in because, as we've mentioned, the Sixers only have 14 roster spots locked up, so there isn't a available roster spot. So might as well just at least see what you got with either one of these.
Yeah, I don't mind that. And if it comes to that point, I think those are viable options there, like kind of better than years past when you're thinking about the guys that we've mentioned in that situation before. So maybe they're in a little bit better situation. They do seem like they have a lot of options. I don't know if you want to get into Thibault too much right now. We've been going for a bit, so we could push it off, but maybe by the next time we talk, you might not be a Sixer.
Yeah, we should have one more in before the deadline. I feel like they're not in a super rush, and we did run long. So we'll get back to you guys one more time with a condensed kind of trade deadline piece. Talk about Thibault, talk about some other guys, some mock trades, third in there. So we'll save that for next time. Appreciate all you guys for tuning in tonight. Go Sixers as usual. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have not already. And me and James will get back with you next week.